It is a warm summer evening in ancient China, and you are standing at the top of the Tower of the Golden Phoenix. Before you stands the city of Ye, and beyond you see the plains of the East Wei Kingdom. You feel the wind blow and your heart begins to beat faster. You know it's time. So you hold on tight to your giant kite. You take one step back and you jump. And you jump and you fly. You fly over the city, beyond its walls and over the plains. You see trees, animals, and people like never before. You fly. And then you land. The year is 559, and you are Yuan Huantou, the first person in recorded history ever to have flown, the first pioneer in the history of aviation. What a wonderful story to inspire future generations. Except I forgot to mention one small detail. Yuan Huantou was actually the sixth prisoner to jump from the tower in an experiment to satisfy the curiosity of evil, sadistic Emperor Wen Xuan, the guy over there. Before he jumped, Yuan Huantou could see the entire history of aviation lying in a heap at the bottom of the tower. That was his 5 friends. And when he landed, Emperor Wen Xuan, bless his heart, sent out the cavalry to catch Yuan Huantou and bring him back to prison. So it was thus, in this shameful and ignoble way, that aviation was really born, sorry to say, with an aviator-engineer tandem that would become the norm in future generations. Of course, we would normally see an excited aviator at the prospect of soaring above the clouds and a terrified engineer that knows that the chewing gum that he used to attach the wing struts could give way at any time and kill his friend. But in this very first instance, it was the opposite. We can assume that for Yuan Huantou, this was the most terrifying day in his life. For Emperor Wen Xuan, it was Tuesday. Just another day at the office. No matter how you look at it, pioneering is a dangerous thing. So why should you try? Is it even a good thing to try to become a pioneer? Is it even possible in aerospace today? And how do you even go about it? These are the 3 questions that I would like to explore with you today. Starting with the first one, is pioneering a good thing or a bad thing? Well, it turns out that pioneering is bad for your health, it's bad for your finances, and it's bad for your reputation. Why am I saying it's bad for your health? Well, pioneering means taking risks. In aerospace, this usually means big risks to life and limb, that of yourself, your colleagues, and sometimes that of enough people at the same time to change the course of history. This happened, for example, on the 23rd of August, 1921, when the dream of RAF Commodore Maitland to link every major city in the British Empire with a fleet of giant airships died with him and with 43 other people when the ZR-2 airship crashed during its official maiden flight. Now, among the people who died were most of the supporters of the project at the Air Ministry. And things never quite picked up after that. One can only wonder, had this test been successful, would Britain have gone on to develop a strong airship industry? And with 2 such industries, would the skies look different today? You'll never know. It turns out that we can quantify just how bad pioneering is for your health by just looking at lists of aviation pioneers. So I did the math, and it turns out that on average, you can expect to live 7 years less than your contemporary men. So there you go. It's bad for your health. Pioneering is also bad for your finances. It's very expensive. The best part is you don't know just how expensive it's going to be until you actually do it. And on top of that, you can never be sure that the pioneer is ever going to reap a return on his investment. I had the chance to meet several years ago the son of Frank Whittle, the British inventor of the turbojet. And he had an interesting story to tell regarding the industrialization process of his father's invention. And he had a startup. And his design prototypes were used by two of today's major aircraft engine manufacturers to launch their business. But Frank Whittle never actually reaped the benefits from that. He lived out his days modestly as a university professor. And his family is still angry. So bad for your finances. Finally, pioneering is bad for your reputation. At least until you make it fly. But very often, even afterwards. One little-known story is that of one Diego Marín Aguilera, who built a human-powered wing-flapping glider and made a successful flight in 1791 from the castle of La Coruña del Conde, near Burgos in Spain. Far from being impressed, at least positively, the villagers took him for a heretic, they burned his machine, and Diego lived out his days in depression and ostracism. But hey, at least he wasn't burned. We used to do that at the time, so it was okay. Now you might say that there's no risk of getting burned at the stake for pioneering today. Perhaps so, at least literally. But your career can still take a serious hit if you pursue unorthodox ideas, even today. So it's bad for your health, it's bad for your finances, it's bad for your reputation. It's bleak. And yet there is reason to hope. For when it does work, a hero is born. A hero that will inspire industry and society for generations. One only has to look at the names of the roundabouts around here to see how a region that is rich in pioneers continues to draw from the well of their collective experience to remain inspired today. If that's not enough, you still have the pure pleasure of soaring above the clouds or floating in space, playing the guitar while you're at it. You have the romanticism of flying away to distant lands or distant planets, or knowing that you're making that happen. Having dreams gives pioneers a noble purpose. And yes, these dreams are worth pursuing, no matter what the dangers might be. Now, I've got a little story to tell you about the dangers too, because I just said that the average life expectancy was 7 years less. It turns out that there are categories within pioneers. So aviators had it much worse. If you're just an aviator, pioneer, you can expect to live 21 years less than your average Joe. Unless you also design and build the machines that you fly in. And there, the difference is much smaller, just 6 years less than the average. And that, ladies and gentlemen, is the value of knowing that that noise you just heard during flight is that chewing gum that you put there in the wing struts that's becoming unstuck. But it turns out that there is a third category. That of engineering pioneers who built and designed fantastic machines, but actually didn't fly in them. So there, you see a statistically significant difference of 5 years, more than the average man. Now, I have to warn you, it won't be 5 years of playing golf and fishing, because this passion that is going to sustain you also means that you'll be inventing and tinkering until the very end. Still, it does mean that pioneering can actually be good for your health if you follow one simple rule: do not fly in the machines you design. Simple. So next question. Is the aerospace industry still a fertile ground where pioneers can grow? And on the face of it, it looks like we have a mature industry with aircraft configurations that have not changed much since the 1960s. Although tremendous progress has been made in materials, aerodynamics, electronics, and that has made flying safer, more environmentally friendly, and cheaper. We'd be hard-pushed to talk about a big revolution, but rather a significant evolution. But I have a piece of good news to tell you. We're in a crisis. Security, the environment, the economy, you name it. The challenges just keep coming, And there's no guarantee that the paradigms that have held true for the past few decades will remain so in the future. On top of that, we have a digital revolution that is sweeping our society, and it's already touching all areas of aerospace, from manufacturing to services to the aircraft themselves. As we speak, a new generation of pioneers is already opening the doors towards electric aircraft, autonomous aircraft, personal air vehicles, air taxis. Not to talk about space, the final frontier, with reusable spacecraft, missions to Mars, microsatellites. It is the worst of times. It is the best of times to become a pioneer. So let's hope I've convinced you to become a pioneer now. How do you go about it? Well, just keep 3 things in mind. Number 1, have very, very clear in your head what your purpose is. What is going to be your driving force? Do you want to make aircraft more environmentally friendly? Have them have a positive impact in the environment? Because such things are possible. Do you want to enable point-to-point travel to make a more connected world? You need to have your end game in mind. Number 2, surround yourself with the right people and the right ideas. In his bestseller, Outliers, the author Malcolm Gladwell looks at the pioneers of IT, trying to see what made their success. He concludes that it was no special ability, but just the fact that they were at the right place, at the right time. They met the right people and they had the right means available at their disposal. There are only a handful of places in the world where such a fertile ground exists in aerospace today. And in France, you have the Paris region and you have the Toulouse-Bordeaux axis. So if you're here already, you're off to a good start. Finally, sell your idea. Sell it again and again. If you're too shy, if you think that you'll be laughed at, you'll never know who your supporters could have been. You need supporters to get funding, to get customers, to turn that dream into reality. All of the pioneers that we know about understood this. And were either very good at doing that themselves or at surrounding themselves with people who could do that well. I recommend that you read the letter of Leonardo da Vinci, a 4x4 all-around pioneer, to his business angel, the Duke of Milan, Ludovico di Sforza. He knew that Ludovico di Sforza would not be high on his great ideas. He was a rather pragmatic man and a bit narcissistic. So the first thing he did in his letter was to show how his inventions could help the Duke in his endeavors. Things like inflammable munition, things that would scare his enemies. And he went all the way to propose, this was long before the time of aluminum foundries, proposed to build a bronze horse in the memory of the House of Sforza, and his father, the Duke, would have been the biggest bronze horse in the world. And this is what really sealed the deal for the Duke, who gave him money and protection for 17 years. Now, Leonardo never finished that horse. He got sidetracked with increasingly interesting projects like painting the Last Supper. And the Duke was actually happy with him because of all the other things that Leonardo did for him. Leonardo got what he wanted from the Duke, and most importantly, the world got what it needed from Leonardo. Just as a side anecdote, the bronze that had been set aside to build this huge statue was eventually molten to make cannonballs to defend the city against the French. Why have I told you these anecdotes? Why have I warned you about the dangers of pioneering? Well, I don't want you to tell me later that I didn't warn you. But if I'm here today, it's actually to ask you to try. I believe that pioneering is our very own way, the aerospace way, of becoming heroes. And I believe we need heroes more than ever. I also believe that these heroes have the possibility of doing things that have never been done before in history through passion, hard work, and persistence. And that all of us who have been drawn to the business of aerospace share a piece of this pioneering spirit somewhere inside. And we live at a scary time. On one hand, we have dark clouds on the horizon. On the other, the pace of technological progress is speeding up so fast that we feel the ground shifting underneath our feet, and the realm of the possible is changing from day to day. I believe we're coming to a tipping point. But I also believe that we in aerospace have the possibility to contribute to make this a positive tipping point, to make the world a smaller, more connected, less scary place. But these things shall not come to pass by the efforts of one lone pioneer, or even a handful of pioneers. We need a whole legion of heroes to make it happen. So wherever you are, at whatever stage in your career you are today, you're either being faced with, or will soon be faced with, decisions regarding these changes that we're undergoing. My message to you today is don't be afraid. Don't be afraid to take risks, and don't be afraid to take the road less traveled. Because if you do, you will become one of these heroes. And we will lead the aerospace industry and our society into a new, wonderful age. What great luck to have been able to stand here and deliver this message to you today, to the people that can make it happen at the time when it needs to happen. Thank you very much.